I recently beat all Sekiro bosses hitless without Kuro's charm and after ringing the demon bell. I fought all the bosses in Reflections of Strength for one main reason. It's harder than New Game Plus 7 because it sets your attack potency to 14 instead of the 99 it can be in New Game Plus 7. I also just don't want to farm items all the time. Anyway, I fought all the bosses for dozens of hours each and thought it would be a good idea to give a short guide on each boss while I show the clip, recommending prosthetics and other items. With that being said, here is a comprehensive guide on hitlessing all Sekiro bosses. Gyoubu is the first required boss for Sekiro. He's one of my favorite bosses and a great introductory boss for the game. I 100% recommend getting the Shinobi firecrackers before this fight as it trivializes him. His horse will start going berserk when you use the firecrackers and you'll have a ton of time to deal damage. I personally don't use any items or prosthetics for the fight as I want to showcase more of his moveset. When moving away from you, Gyoubu will sometimes do a charge in a figure 8 pattern. If he's far enough away, you'll only have to parry the last attack in the chain. When you parry, it stops his whole combo. Every time he moves away from you, if he lifts his spear up with both hands, it means that you should get ready to grapple to him. If you have the upgrade where you can attack midair, you should be able to get 3 attacks off before you have to parry his attack. Also, don't attack the back of the horse too often, as sometimes it will hit up dirt which can damage you. After the first death glow, he will always move away to which you can grapple. You should be able to deal a lot of damage during this. Whenever his horse lifts him up, you're able to deal tons of damage and he will always move away after this, so don't worry about parrying. In this phase, he also gains an attack where he jumps with the horse to hit you twice, with the second being quite delayed, so be careful on that. After you grapple to him, he'll do a large swing around him. It often doesn't hit, but you should parry just in case. He does this 3-hit combo often when you attack him by lifting his spear behind his back away from you. You also have an opportunity to attack before the 3rd hit. If he lifts the spear to his left side, it is a delayed attack, so be careful. And that's it for Gyoubu. Lady Butterfly, probably my least favorite boss in the game outside of the gimmick bosses. I recommend forcing her into a loop by making her parry your attacks, and then parrying the kick she does and starting the combo again. When she backs off, she has a chance to go in the air. If she jumps 3 times like this, you can either parry as she gets to the top of her jump or just walk away. Attack her a little slowly because she has a chance to do a perilous attack that you have to jump over. When she stays in the air, she also has a chance to use a perilous attack that you need to dodge away from. Instead of attacking twice, you can also use a charged attack, which will guarantee that she parries, though I think that would be a little slower. If she jumps back, I would use the shuriken to close the distance. Before her phase 2, you have a chance to use any items like healing or buffs before she appears. The same strategy works for phase 2, but it's even more important to be as aggressive as possible. She will sometimes jump up, and that's when you should use a shuriken and keep using shurikens until she falls down. The reason you have to be so aggressive is that you don't want to give her an opportunity to summon her little illusion minions. If she does, I recommend using the snap seed to remove all the illusions. By repeating the same pattern of attacks, you should be able to beat her relatively easily. And that's it for Lady Butterfly. Genichiro Ashina, the first real skill check in the game. I also recommend keeping up the pressure against him to force him to attack certain ways, and also this will not allow him to use his bow. Sometimes when you parry, he will turn 180 and attack twice, followed by a large flurry of attacks. This is his floating passage. I recommend just walking away as it's extremely difficult to parry the full combo, as at one point he attacks 4 times in quick succession, which is extremely hard because of Sekiro's parrying mechanics. So walk away and you can use any items or buffs, but only in phase 1. Be sure to parry the 3 arrows from his bow before dodging the last one, which I found to be the most consistent. In phase 1, when he does the jump attack, he will always follow with a thrust that you can Mikiri counter. As mentioned earlier, his floating passage in this phase is also a little different. I recommend not using any items and instead using firecrackers to stop the combo as soon as possible, as if you get too far, he will attack you with a bow. Phase 2 is mostly the same as phase 1, but Genichiro gets more options. When he does the jump attack, he can sometimes do a perilous attack that you have to jump. You can also jump on his head when he does this attack, though I don't personally like it because I'd rather get a couple of attacks off than build his posture. Other than that, phase 2 is the same as phase 1 and should be dealt in the same way. Genichiro always starts phase 3 with a thrust attack that you can Mikiri counter. In this phase, you want to be even more aggressive than the previous phases. Even after he parries you, you should still be attacking him, until he does a lightning perilous attack. You can use lightning reversal by jumping, parrying, and attacking to hit him with the lightning instead. However, this does damage to the player, so if you are trying to hitless it, I would recommend using the Mist Raven or Sakura Dance. You can only get the Sakura Dance, however, by beating the inner Genichiro Gauntlet. I am only using the Sakura Dance to reflect the lightning, but sometimes using it early can cancel out the perilous attack altogether. He uses both a bow and a sword for his lightning, with the bow being quite a bit more delayed than the sword. His floating passage in this phase is the same as phase 1's, so you can use items before using a firecracker to get an opening. And that's about it for Genichiro. Guardian Ape is another amazing boss in this game. You have a ton of time to use any items before the fight. I highly recommend using Shinobi Firecrackers for this boss, as he takes posture damage from it. The Mortal Blade is also extremely powerful for this boss, but I don't use it as not everyone will have the Mortal Blade before fighting this boss. You should stay close to the boss, as they do have some ranged attacks, specifically the poisonous shit attack that he throws at you. You can use either trees to block those or stay close by and dodge it. If he gets into this state where he jolts back from your attacks, be sure to keep punishing him until he falls over. He also has a grab attack where he jumps up like Freddy Fazbear, which you should dodge to the side while staying close. You mostly want to fight this phase by focusing on dodging. He sometimes throws a tantrum on the ground, where you can either parry his arms or use items during the downtime. Use the firecrackers often to give yourself opening, and remember that he will slam the ground after he is hit by firecrackers, so parry that. He will also sweep the ground with his arms in a perilous attack that you have to jump. Once you beat this phase, the true terror begins, but not really, since phase 2 is actually quite a bit easier than phase 1. I highly recommend using a spear prosthetic for this phase as well as divine confetti, as the boss is counted as an apparition according to Fextra Life, making them particularly weak to it. When he stands back up, he often does the terror attack, but not always, so be ready in case he does. Technically, the Guardian Ape skin is armor for the centipede inside, so by using the spear, you can pull the centipede out of the armor temporarily to do a ridiculous amount of posture damage, and beat the boss relatively quickly. Learn to parry their sword attacks, and especially the large overhead sword attack. When you parry the last attack, they will fall over and give you a huge opening. This boss also has a perilous sweep attack which you have to jump. The last thing I want to mention about this boss is the terror scream they do. This can be dealt with in a variety of ways. Mostly, I recommend just running away when you see their left arm, the one that's holding the head, move towards their headless stump. This signals their scream, which does terror and can instantly kill you if it builds up. You can also use a purple umbrella to protect yourself, or the purple gourd to remove the terror. And that's all for Guardian Ape, for now. The fake corrupted monk. Without any cheese, I would actually consider this boss harder than the true corrupted monk. Its stats are buffed way too much and the fight takes a long time. Early on, they use a 5-hit combo with unique timing. The third attack is a little delayed and the fifth attack is a little early, so be sure to keep that in mind when timing the hits. I highly recommend getting the Mortal Blade before fighting her, since it will make the fight a lot easier. I didn't use it for this run because I wanted to showcase her moveset. If you don't do any cheese, the only strategy is to be consistent for a long time. She barely takes any posture damage or any damage at all, so I recommend using the Divine Confetti, which she is weak to, and even then barely so. I also recommend using the Shinobi Firecrackers to create openings for yourself. You can also use the Loaded Axe, since she has a shield, which would be the cloth on her arm, which is why I do so little damage. Lastly, since she's an illusion, you can use Snap Seeds on her to do a large chunk of damage to her, which works 3 times before she becomes immune to the effect. You can also fully cheese this boss with a backstab with Snap Seeds and Fistfuls of Ash in the game, though I'm not sure if it would work for the Reflections of Battle as well. If you are on a later playthrough, you might have the Loaded Axe upgrade, the Luzulite Axe. This weapon is extremely powerful against her, since it acts as a snap seed and does a lot of damage to the false corrupted monk. This works alongside using the 3 initial snap seeds. Be aware that this boss has both a sweep and a thrust perilous attack that you need to jump and Mikiri counter for. When they attack and jump away, you have time to use one item like healing or buffs, but quickly since they often come back with a fast attack. You have to get the corrupted monk to around 50% health before you can kill them because of just how high their posture regeneration is. Keep chipping them down and eventually you will kill them. I'm quite fond of this boss. They attack slowly with long combos, so it's fun to keep practicing. Other than that, I'll let the clip speak for itself, as the most important part is getting consistent with their moveset since they do a lot of the same moves. Great Shinobi Owl. This is another one of my least favorite bosses. His shurikens are just annoying. I highly recommend bringing the Mortal Blade for this boss as he's pretty weak to it. I also bring the shuriken prosthetic to make up the gap between him and me. When he throws the double shurikens, he will always follow up with an overhead slash. I recommend dodging to the side and punishing with the Mortal Blade for this attack, as parrying won't give you an opportunity to punish. I also use the Mortal Blade as a punish after he throws the firecrackers. Your own Shinobi firecrackers are also powerful against him, creating openings to do bigger attacks, though I mostly saved my spirit emblems for the Mortal Blade. In Reflections of Battle, after the first death blow, he will always bow down. He does this for the first attempt in the regular game as well. You will have tons of time to use items during this time. I choose to get hit by his anti-heal attacks to just do more damage since I don't need healing. He also switches his shurikens for poison bombs in phase 2. Another note, do not try to do thrust attacks to any version of Owl, especially when he's in a neutral stance, as he can Mikiri counter you. In phase 2, you have to jump over his smoke bombs. I didn't learn that until recently. When he does throw his poison in phase 2, he will often heal his own posture. I recommend using a shuriken here to stop that. I ran out of spirit emblems, so I wasn't able to do that since I was spamming the Mortal Blade, but it's definitely worth it to keep 1 or 2 in case. Other than that, the only way forward is mostly learning the boss's moveset. If you are both not attacking, I don't recommend initiating attacks, as Owl has some attacks which can attack faster than you. So if you are both standing, wait for his attacks and play reactively. I think the coolest thing about Great Shinobi Owl is that each death gives you a different voice line about the Iron Code. The first rule is obeying your parent. The second is keeping your master safe. And third, it's that you can run away, but you must get revenge. If you run out of spirit emblems like me, you can spend the time when he's healing to use an item. And that's about it for Great Shinobi Owl. The Headless Ape fight. This is the only gank fight I'm going to be talking about today, thank God. Headless Ape's phase 1 is the same as Guardian Ape's phase 2. Luckily, Guardian Ape's phase 2 is quite a bit easier than phase 1, and uses less spirit emblems, so you'll have many for the next phase. So I recommend using the same strategy. The prosthetics you should bring are also the same because in phase 2, the additional ape is pretty much just Guardian Ape phase 1. There's not much to cover in phase 1 that I haven't already for Guardian Ape phase 2. If you're playing through the game, know that this boss is technically optional if you go through and defeat the corrupted monk before fighting Guardian Ape. This arena will just be an empty cave if you haven't fought Guardian Ape yet. If you don't want to deal with this boss, and I wouldn't blame you, you would have to go through Mibu Village before the Sunken Valley. Depending on how far Guardian Ape is from the cliff wall, you have a lot of time you can use items and healing. You can also cheese this boss with the Mortal Blade. If you keep attacking, they can't scream to bring in their second combatant. I didn't do that in this run because I wanted to showcase how to beat them normally. If the Headless Ape does the lunging attack where they go onto the ground, this will also trigger the other ape to attack. Almost always one combatant will focus on you at once. You can beat the Headless Ape without even hurting the other ape, so I would focus on the Headless Ape. Alternatively, you can also just kill the other ape, so this phase becomes phase 1 again. You should position yourself so that the Headless Ape is the one closer to you, and fighting you so that you can kill them. There are certain signals you have to watch out for, which will cause the other ape to start attacking. If you parry the Headless Ape and they fall to the ground, you can get one spear attack in before the other ape comes in. Also, if the Headless Ape screams, the other ape will attack. I recommend just running away from the scream and parrying the other ape. And that's about it for Headless Ape. Next is Emma. She's actually surprisingly difficult phase 1 for Isshin Ashina in the Shura ending. She attacks quite quickly, so oftentimes you're gonna want to wait for her to attack. She also has a grab attack, which you can notice by her sheathing her sword. I didn't use any prosthetics on her, but I would recommend the Shinobi Firecrackers as I think they're one of the best. Other than that, focus on parrying and the fight should be straightforward. She has a longer combo signaled by her stance, which I learned as 1, 1, 2, 1. It's easy once you try to think of it that way. Emma can use a perilous attack that you have to jump after you parry her. You can force Emma into a small counterattack loop by attacking her once and parrying. That should be all you need to know for Emma. Isshin Ashina, the true final boss of the Shura ending. His phase 1 is an easier version of Isshin the Sword Saint's phase 1. Most of his attacks are the same. You should be trying to constantly attack him to force him to counterattack in the same way. He will always do an attack that you have to jump, after the one where he sheathes his sword. Like the Sword Saint Isshin, he can parry sideways, which will always be followed by a thrust. If he puts his sword to the left, it means that when you attack, he will dodge. Afterwards, he likes to do a quick counterattack. Shinobi Firecrackers will give you more openings to attack him in this phase, but I personally save my Spirit Emblems for the Mortal Blade in phase 2. In phase 2, I always cancel out his long charge attack with the Mortal Blade. He's one of the bosses who uses an attack which attacks 4 times in a row in quick succession, which makes it near impossible to perfectly parry. That's why I just cancel it. The Mortal Blade is also useful for punishing him after his attacks. He has a lot of the same moveset but adds fire to his attacks. I would recommend using the Mortal Blade only for when he hits the stance for the long charge up attack and when he sprays fire. You can also use Suzaku's umbrella for this, but I found it to be much more consistent to just dodge and punish with the Mortal Blade. Lastly, I just wanted to add, I think it's funny how evil they make Wolf in the Shura ending. He literally kills a woman, an old man, his dad, and a little kid. It's an evil villain checklist. And that is all for Isshin Ashina. Next is the boss guarding the Fountainhead Palace, the true corrupted monk. You should have practiced already with the fake corrupted monk. Her phase 1 is an easier version of the fake corrupted monk, removing a lot of her troublesome attacks and giving more openings to attack. I would use the Mortal Blade and Shinobi Firecrackers in this phase if I wanted to trivialize her. You may notice that her stats are much lower than the fake corrupted monk, which is balanced around the fact that she has less cheese. You can't use Snap Seeds or the Lazulite Axe to deal extra damage to her, but because her stats are lower, she should be relatively easy to beat regardless. She also doesn't have her 5-hit combo this phase, which she gains back in her third phase. Her phase 2 is also cancelled out by a death blow from above by climbing the tree. I recommend doing that. I fought her a couple times in phase 2, but I don't even remember what it was anymore. Her centipede comes out in phase 3. Phase 3 is pretty much the same as the fake corrupted monk, with a few additional terror attacks from the centipede creature which give you a great opening to punish. I recommend bringing the purple gourd to prevent death if you're afflicted by terror. This boss, like the fake corrupted monk, is extremely weak to the mortal blade, so I recommend using that. I didn't because I wanted to showcase her phase 3 a little more. In phase 3, she loves to spam perilous attacks like her sweep and poison spray. After doing damage to this boss, she counterattacks at a very fast pace, so be ready to parry the moment she lifts up her spear. And that's about it for the true corrupted monk. Learn her attacks and it will be easy. Owl Father, an optional boss which gives you items for a better ending. I recommend using the Mortal Blade and Shinobi Firecrackers as he is weak to both. I find that his attacks are more predictable than Great Shinobi Owl, so I prefer him. Contrary to Great Shinobi Owl, I suggest being very aggressive for Owl Father. He is more predictable and seems to attack slower. Always run to the right when he throws his firecrackers, as it's the easiest way to dodge. Also, when he does a long charge up overhead slash, you should not dodge too quickly as he'll cancel the move. Dodge last second for the chance to do a lot of damage. In phase 2, Owl will always teleport away with his owl first thing. I recommend using any items immediately as he won't attack for a while. Keep the pressure up on him. However, you want to give him space sometimes, as you don't want to cancel his flaming owl attack. His biggest difference is that he has much less openings as he teleports away after his large attacks. He will always teleport from his blue owl, so you can just run away after that and you will be fine. You want to jump over the flaming owl and Makiri counter him afterwards. This gives the greatest opening in the phase. I use the shurikens to close the distance if he does any jumping away. His phase 2 acts more similarly to Great Shinobi Owl. He regains the ability to throw shurikens after his stomp on you, which he lost for whatever reason in phase 1. He has a cooldown to his teleport, so if he recently teleported, you can punish him freely. I use the Mortal Blade when I know he will be hit. Remember that you can use the Mortal Blade and the other combat arts when you run out of spirit emblems. If he makes distance with his shuriken jump, I recommend giving him a little time to see if he does the flaming owl attack. This is because if you attack him when he's doing that animation, he will continue to launch the owl while doing his other attacks, which can be very hard to dodge. You can also hide behind a post to dodge the flaming owl. That's about it for Owl Father. The Demon of Hatred, one of my favorite bosses in the game. He is a great and sad story, while also being very fun once you learn him. If you didn't know, he's the sculptor who became this demon when the land was filled with war and to protect Emma. I used to fight him by dodging most of his attacks, but I actually found it way more fun if you learn to parry him with Suzaku's umbrella. Almost all of his attacks can be parried, and I highly recommend it for the 4-hit combo where he swings twice with his arm, hits with the foot, and once more with the arm. It's the most consistent way to deal with this attack. You really need to stay as close to him as possible in this phase, as he does long-range fireball attacks. If he jumps away or does his red attack, which you need to jump, you should run after him as fast as possible. If you do choose to dodge him, I recommend staying near his left side, as almost all attacks will miss you. The only especially dangerous attack is the 4-hit combo. Before phase 2 starts, you have a ton of time to use items like buffs or healing, which I would recommend as he is invulnerable during this time. He also releases a gust of air pushing you away. Afterwards, he can be hurt. His phase 2 is actually very similar to his phase 1, but I play it very differently. In this phase, I do not chase him when he's farther away. I only close the distance when he uses an attack I know I can get closer to him with. If he jumps into the air, attack him until he is unreachable, then run away and grapple back onto him. In phase 2, he also gets an attack where he summons a lot of fireballs to attack you. Run horizontally in either direction to avoid them and punish him afterward. I also recommend Divine Confetti as he is counted as an apparition, making him especially weak. Note that the Divine Confetti does not work with Suzaku's Lotus Umbrella, as when you use the umbrella it will put away the sword, removing the Divine Confetti effect. So, if you plan on fighting him dodge based, use the confetti, and if you want to play him parry based, use the umbrella. Oftentimes, when he does his hand drag charge attack, he will follow it up with a fire whip slam, which you should be farther away to dodge easier. Run horizontal to the boss and jump when his hand hits the ground. Then you can grapple onto him to get closer, but depending on your distance, he might start attacking quickly, so this isn't a consistent punish window. Players, including me, often get too greedy because his punish windows are so large. Stay consistent. Remember, he has one attack with very little charge up where he stomps both feet, You don't want to be caught attacking during this. The Demon of Hatred gets stunned at certain damage thresholds for a small time, so be sure to capitalize on these times for maximum damage. After phase 3 starts, you have time to use one item before you should use the Mal content. I recommend using the Mal content during phase 3. You can only use it 3 times before he gains an immunity, which is why I don't use it during his other phases. He also slams onto the ground after the 3rd use, so be sure to dodge. You get huge punish windows, and I didn't even use it super efficiently. This pretty much trivializes the phase, but there are a few attacks you might have to deal with. He will always do a fire whip circle, which you have to jump, and then you can attack him. Stay close as he has another red attack afterward. In this phase, after his hand drag charge attack, he will often follow it with another one, so be sure to be ready for that. All the rest of the attacks are from previous phases. He may be difficult, but once you learn to parry, he sure is fun. Good luck, and that should be all for Demon of Hatred. Farewell, Orangutan. Genichiro, who is really just Isshin the Sword Saint's first phase. I recommend running behind him at the beginning of the phase, because he will always do the same attack. By now, you should know most of Genichiro's moveset. He attacks like his 3rd phase, but without the lightning. Instead, he uses his Black Mortal Blade to attack, which you should dodge as you will take damage even if you parry. Other than that, it's mostly the same and should be straightforward. He has the same weaknesses as regular Genichiro, and I recommend treating him as such. Keep the pressure on him and he will use the same attacks. This is the last we see of Genichiro, who was an amazing boss, sadly reduced to a phase 1, as he doesn't have the strength to continue fighting Wolf. Good luck. Isshin the Sword Saint. Many people's favorite boss ever and one of my personal favorites. You have time at the start of the fight to use any items. I also recommend using the Mortal Blade combat art. He can also block sideways, which will always result in an attack you can Mikiri counter. He can also sheathe his sword for a fast 2-hit slash. Don't move for this attack, otherwise he'll cancel it and do a different attack. He can also raise the sword above his head, which you should dodge to get a good opening to attack. You can cancel out his wind charge attack with firecrackers or certain combat arts. Now it's phase 2. Sometimes he'll run up to you and attack before pulling a spear out of thin air. Be ready to parry if he does. Otherwise, just make distance and you can use items or punish him immediately after he pulls the spear out. Don't try to parry any of his multi-bullet attacks, as it's near impossible to fully parry. If he's in a neutral stance and not attacking, I often use the firecrackers to give myself an opening to attack. When he does a 360 before attacking you, he will go into a 7-hit combo. I always remember the attack as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If he does a retreating sweep attack, you should run sideways as he sometimes shoots 4 bullets. Afterwards, he might also do a red attack. This attack will either be a Mikiri counter or one that you have to jump. Usually, the first time he does this attack, it will be a Mikiri counter from you. I always attack after his overhead spear attack, which stops him from firing his bullet. I also use the firecrackers when he does a sword slash and runs away, as I want to keep consistent pressure and not let his posture regenerate. He sometimes also does a 3-hit combo ending in a thrust, which you can Mikiri counter. Lastly, it's his phase 3, which I consider his easiest phase. In this phase, he'll use lightning, which you can use reversal for. I used the Sakura dance so that I don't take any damage while reversing the lightning. Reminder that you can also use the Mist Raven for this. Other than his 2 or 3 lightning attacks, he also does one more attack, which would be his double wind slashes. You can dodge both relatively easy and punish afterwards. Other than that, he is the same as phase 2. The lightning should trivialize him, as it does a ridiculous amount of damage and gives large openings for the player to attack. While we're here, can we appreciate how cool the lightning gimmick is? It's probably my favorite boss gimmick in any game I've played. That is the final boss of the game and a great way to end it. Thanks for getting this far into the video. Since you're still watching, you should know I plan on releasing video essays and gameplay showcases of Souls-likes and other types of games pretty consistently. Feel free to let me know what game you would want me to cover in the comments below. After this, I will talk about the inner bosses. Inner Genichiro will always start off with the Sakura dance that I've been using to reverse the lightning. This attack will deal damage unless you perfect parry it, so you can parry the first 2 attacks and dodge towards him to avoid the last one, giving you an opening to punish. Inner Genichiro's floating passage is a little different. If you are too far away, he will cancel it and run towards you before doing another combo. That's why I recommend bringing the Shinobi Firecrackers to cancel this attack altogether. Just a note, the inner bosses are very similar to their base counterparts, so I will be mostly talking about their differences. The last difference is that he will lightning reversal you, so when you lightning reversal, be ready to do it again. Now I'll let the rest of the clip play out. Inner Father is the most different from their base counterpart. In this phase, his only difference is that when you attack, he will sometimes use the Mist Raven to teleport away from your attack and counterattack. My best advice is to be ready for this teleportation, as he counterattacks relatively quickly. I still recommend attacking often and keeping up the pressure to force him to counterattack. I would also recommend using the Firecrackers. I only had the Mist Raven on to test if it would work against the Flaming Owl attack, though I never did end up trying. In phase 2, he keeps the Mist Raven counterattack, but he gains 3 new attacks. When he dodges an attack with Mist Raven, he can go into 2 different combos. One where he throws shurikens, and one where he slashes a couple times in quick succession by teleporting. I recommend just running away from these attacks. This time, when he readies his Fire Owl attack, he can sometimes do a variation where instead of jumping, you need to dodge. I usually dodge towards the Fire Owl as I find that the most consistent. You should dodge forwards when the Flaming Owl goes through Inner Father. You can also dodge to the left or right for this attack. He still follows this attack with a thrust that you can Mikiri counter. That's all for Inner Father. He took me the longest to beat after beating their base counterpart. I recommend practicing him a few times because the Shura Gauntlet is already quite difficult to beat with both Isshin Ashina and the Demon of Hatred in this gauntlet. And finally, we have Inner Isshin, the least changed of the inner bosses. He always starts off with a huge AoE with the Black Modal Blade. This attack is extremely hard to parry, so I recommend attacking once and retreating out of range before going in to attack again. Otherwise, this phase is extremely similar to regular Isshin. One thing to mention is his combos are slightly different when you make him counterattack. So, to make it more consistent to regular Isshin, I recommend using charge attacks to force him to counterattack like regular Isshin. In this phase, he can also sometimes cancel when he sheathes his sword into a regular sword combo. I use Shinobi Firecrackers more often in this phase, as I actually find this more difficult than phase 2 with the slight interchanges. He feels quite a bit less consistent. Next we have phase 2. This phase I find easier than Sword Saint Isshin's second phase, because his new attacks have better punish windows. When he stands still and raises his sword, make some distance and jump when he throws the perilous attack. Then, he will do one of two attacks. If no perilous indicator comes up, you should run away when he's charging up. If an indicator does come up, you should dodge towards him for a Mikiri counter as he will do a thrust. His phase 3 follows the same pattern as Isshin's phase 3, but with the phase 2 inner attacks from before. Since they're so similar, you can also watch this to see any attacks I missed on Isshin the Sword Saint. Next week, I plan on making a video essay on how great of a game Sekiro is, how it's changed Souls-likes forever, and which games you should play if you love Sekiro. If you want to see that, let me know, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. And remember, hesitation is defeat.